Hello, BookTube. I once have to again apologize for a technical shortcoming since I am, as the kids say, wicked pissa old. I had originally intended to see what the variables will be. I'm always playing around with the variables on a live stream, and I was wondering what the variables would be if I announced a live stream well ahead of time, hours and hours and hours ahead of time. I just yesterday got a chunk of real world work done. The next chunk is not looming for a bit, just the ordinary chunks, the stuff that I do with a profusion that is largely unbelievable. So I thought early this morning, I thought, okay, well, you can set a time instead of just doing it when you make your other videos. Set a time and see if that changes attendance, see if that changes who attends or what. And I did, and I set it all up, and I was very proud of myself. And days went by, and days went by, and weeks went by, and years went by. And it was only at the very last minute, like 20 minutes ago, that I realized that I had set the whole thing to private the whole time, so that no one knew. No one could look at it and know. So sooner or later, I will get the hang of this booktubing thing. And that was noticing that just a bit ago was flustering to notice that I had just made that mistake. And even more flustering was something that happened during my evening walk with the little bean over there on her chair. She's looking just a little bit tired, maybe a little bit peaked. Yeah, I don't doubt it. We had something rather dramatic happen on our dog walk. We take an evening walk. It's almost always a good idea. It's later in the afternoon, right on the cusp of evening. It's usually not a time when she is all that up for a walk. And it's almost always a time when I am embroiled in the day's work. And always, for 7-8 years, I've had to remind myself that it's always a good idea. I firmly believe that even if I didn't have a dog, it would still be a good idea. Take that break, recalibrate, just take a short walk and recalibrate. But with her, it's even better. So we did that. It's the humidity, it seems to have washed out of the air completely. It's a beautiful, clear evening, going on to evening, late afternoon. And I'm still processing this. Sorry for the inept storytelling, but we were walking along the sidewalk, a stone wall on our side, and the stone wall was mounted by tall hedges, green hedges, full of sparrows hopping all around and talking with each other. No one was around. It's a beautiful blue sky evening, just lovely, just exactly why it's always a good idea to take this walk. And up ahead of us, there was a right-hand corner. And I'm a little bit suspicious of right-hand corners. I don't want to walk into somebody, and I don't want to walk Freeda right around the corner into another dog. It doesn't matter how friendly the other dog is. A meeting like that at the spur of the moment can go poorly. I sort of listened around. I didn't hear anybody. And of course, Freeda would react if there were a dog right around the corner, and she wasn't reacting. The two of us were largely enjoying ourselves. We were largely talking with each other, but still, I thought, well, we'll pause just a bit, but we will hug this corner. I don't think it's anything. We do this a million times a week. I don't think it's anything. So we did hug that corner. We just rounded a right-hand corner. And keep in mind, because of the wall and the hedge, I couldn't see anything past that corner. So we took it blind. In my own defense, we had taken 4 or 5 blind corners earlier in the day at other places, and nothing came of it. Nothing ever comes of it. We rounded that corner this evening, and there was a squirrel just standing on the sidewalk. He wasn't running across the sidewalk. He wasn't running towards the hedge. He was just sort of standing there, like he was waiting for a cab or something. And so we rounded the corner, and there was that instant of just a split fraction of a second where I was stunned, because you never see that. I never see that. I never see the squirrels acting so incautiously as to be just standing flat-footed in the middle of a sidewalk. And the squirrel was stunned. Obviously, he had not heard anyone coming, and maybe thought sidewalks were suddenly safe, something like that. I don't really know. He was just stunned as well. In that fraction of a second, and I mean a fraction, a picosecond. In that fraction of a second, the only person who wasn't stunned was Freeda. She knew exactly what to do, and she became a blur. She's fast and nimble and much stronger than she looks. She's a really active, square, strong little dog. I remember all the worries that I had about a little dog. I used to think they were so delicate that if you so much as looked at them wrong, they'd snap a leg. And maybe some of them are, but this little dog is not. Terriers, I get the impression from terrier people, are not. And when she shifts into hunting mode, which for her is not stalking, it's just a bolt of lightning. When she shifts into that mode, she shifts into 500 years of breeding. She is the product of selective engineering, of genetic engineering to create a ratter of superb ability, a ratter of superb ability. Her grip is incredibly strong for her size. She never uses it. She never needs to, but it's incredibly strong for her size. And she is incredibly strong for her size. And of course, that tight, gnarly fur all over her body, and especially on her snout, is like a coat of armor. It's really hard to get at her. And I noticed when she was a little puppy, this was when she was 10 months old, I think was the first one, where I was playing with her on the living room floor, and she sensed the movement of a mouse in the kitchen, on the kitchen floor, back when the mice in this apartment were used to my two old girls who were blind and deaf, and they could come out in the middle of the day. They knew that I liked them, so they would come out in the middle of the day to search for food, rummage around. A couple of them still are that daring, but most of them were killed off by my little dog. We were playing when she was like 10 months old. We were playing on the living room floor. She was just a tiny little puppy. And there was a flash of movement on the kitchen floor that both of us caught at the same time out of the corner of our eye, and I've never seen anything living move that fast. She was on that mouse before it even had a chance to react. And she wasn't herself either. All of her went out of her eyes. She was suddenly just neural programming. And that same thing happened tonight. She was on that squirrel before either the squirrel or I could react. Keep in mind, she's not pulling on the leash when we walk. She's walking about 8 inches in front of me with the leash completely slack between us. There's never any reason for me, unless she's trying to get at another dog or, I don't know, wander into traffic or something. There's usually never any reason for me to have her leash at attention. I got her a new cloth harness, so it's not all that uncomfortable, but it's unbecoming. I don't like yanking a friend around when we're on a walk, and she makes it unnecessary. So when that nanosecond happened, I had no means of controlling her inside the ambit of that leash. And the squirrel, we were right on top of him. He was inches away. She snapped his neck in a fraction of a second and then started what she always does with the mice, what she did with the mice in this apartment. She kills and then she brutalizes, smashes the body all around. She isn't at all interested in eating. She wants to kill and then pulp. And I stopped her a little bit. I wasn't being violent or angry at all, but I stopped her from doing that. It was bad enough that she had killed this thing that was just out for a stroll, just like we were. Bad enough that squirrel probably has relatives, friends, maybe offspring, who he will not go home to them. It was wild. I made a deal with Freeda a long time ago. I made a deal as soon as she became adult enough to understand me. I made a deal with her that I'm never going to interfere with that. I won't let her do anything harmful to herself, but I also won't give her unlimited freedom. I won't let her off a leash. I won't incite anything, but I will never stop her from doing something that is absolutely basic to her nature. And I mean, I couldn't have stopped her anyway tonight because the squirrel was too close. We were right on top of him when we rounded the corner. There was the only one of us who had their wits about them in that second was Freeda. If he'd been a little bit further away outside the ambit of the leash, I would probably have pulled her back. Just because I don't like death and mayhem, but still, I tried to convey that to the mice in this apartment years and years ago. When my girls became, Lucy was never any effective against anything at all, mice or anything else. But Malin was a big athletic dog. My pointer was a big athletic dog. And so the mice were pretty wary around her when she was, for the 12 years that she was hale and healthy, active mind and body. But then her eyesight started to go, her hearing started to go, her reflexes started to go. And then for the last 2 years, neither she nor Lucy, they knew that I was there, but they didn't know that anything else was there. I could have guests come over, and they wouldn't know the guests were there until the guests walked right up to them. So the mice were completely free, and like I said, they knew perfectly well that I don't have any problem with them at all. I think mice are adorable roommates. They make barely any noise. They're adorable to look at. So I didn't care that they were there at all. I take precautions. They can't help their nature any more than Freeda can. So I took precautions. Got all sorts of metal tins for stuff so they couldn't get into anything. But if there are crumbs on the kitchen counter at the end of a long day of fixing meals, they're welcome to them. So I didn't think anything of it. And I wished when the changeover was made and I got the impression from people online of what schnauzers were like, I really wished that I had the ability to tell those mice, look, things have changed. Not only is there a younger dog in the house, but she's a mouser. If you keep sauntering across the floor, you're all going to die, because I'm not going to stop her from doing that. Actually, honestly, in that moment, when she notices that kind of floor scurrying and shifts, that the light goes out of her eyes and she shifts into motion, a blur of motion, I'm not sure that I could stop her in that moment. I'm not sure that she would listen to me at all. But I wish that I could have told the mice that. Instead, they all had to die. All the ones that were dumb enough to venture onto the floor had to die, except for there are a couple that have got away with it and still occasionally do, but not anymore. Not anymore in any kind of volume. And the same thing is true with the 2 chipmunks that Freeda has killed. So now I'm afraid at the ripe old age, she's almost 8, and at the ripe old age of 8, her tally is now 48 mice, 2 chipmunks, and 1 squirrel. The squirrel would not have been added to the tally if I'd had even a second's warning. I didn't have any at all. So that was a jolt of adrenaline for the evening dog walk. I don't know what to make of that. It doesn't do anything really to Freeda anymore. When she was younger and was just feeling her oats as a person in the world, it definitely put a spring in her step. But now she's accustomed to it. She's racked up enough kills now and has total freedom. Aside from coming and going in the apartment as she pleases, she has total freedom to do anything she wants, to express any kind of opinion. If she doesn't like what she's eating, we'll change it. She just has to tell me what she's in the mood for, and I'll do it. Doesn't have any kind of demeaning tricks or anything like that she's being taught to do. Nothing like that at all. Just she's completely free. She's as free as a domesticated dog in the city can be. And that plus her kill count has made her into really a kind of little queen. So this is only going to help with that, I guess. I didn't know what to do with the squirrel's remains. I'm assuming that other squirrels or the feral cats or raccoons will take care of that. I'm assuming that the dead squirrel won't be there tomorrow. I'm really hoping that's true. That would be kind of macabre. But that was the excitement. The excitement portion of the evening. The only other noteworthy portion of the evening before I turn it over to the chat it's a time-honored tick of mine. It's a tech tick of mine. People have commented on it, and I understand it's funny. I realize the humor in it, but for the years now on this channel, I've encouraged people to send me their discarded tech. Whatever tech you have that you don't use, feel free to send it to me. Because I'm always in search of the platonic ideal, the perfect tech, the one device to rule them all. Even though I know from watching a million hours of bro tech videos that nobody ever has that. Everybody has more than one piece of tech, except maybe Michael K. Vaughan. Everybody has more than one piece of tech. They use different tech for different things. The ideal for me would be to keep that number down, but I don't think I could ever get it to one thing. I'd be closer than a lot of people because I don't actually use my phone all that much. I make sure to keep it charged, but it's never with me. I don't film on it. I don't watch anything on it. God knows, don't read anything on it. I never make phone calls. So I can effectively take that out of the picture of tech. And if I take that out of the picture of tech, then I do get awful close to being able to use one device only. I could, for instance, use the 13-inch iPad. I'm sure that I could use that as my only device. I'm sure I could live on that. I have made experiments trying to do that. And they always come within an inch of working out. They're just a tiny little leftover handful of things that the MacBook can do that iPad Pro cannot do. And I'm sure there are workarounds that I just haven't found. But even though I know that, I still periodically go back to my tech just to see, just to fire it up, power it up, take a look at it and see what it's like. Maybe I learned something about tech in the interval, or maybe I sold it short or something like that. And the reason why that is so cumbersome a process is because I don't take a leaf from David Murphy's book. When David is here and he's looking at all my tech, he does a very tech person thing. He keeps a sticky note pad and makes update notes on each device as he's finishing with it, so that he doesn't have to leave it to memory, and so that we don't have to worry about don't have to wonder about, okay, what was the problem with this device? What did it do or not do? I wish that I had the presence of mind to do that. Of course, I also wish I had the block of sticky notes, but I handed it to David over on the Donegal chair, and it disappeared into the weird pocket dimension that he carries with him, so that when you hand him things, they stand a 30% chance of disappearing, not from ready discovery, but if you look around, you'll find them, but from our space-time continuum, so that no one will ever find them again. They are gone. But I could buy a replacement pad of sticky notes. I haven't done that for my tech, but the one that I hauled out, the one that I've got it right here, it was a gift from one of you. All this tech is gifts from one of you. One of you sent me an old Kindle Fire of yours in a cat case. This is a sleep-wake case. And I took this thing out, and I was fiddling around with it. And when I got it from I forget who sent this to me, but when I got it, I immediately installed the Google Play Store on it. So I don't know if you can see. Yeah, I installed the Google Play Store. It's in the it's in this miscellaneous folder, and that gives me access to all the things that I want, as opposed to the native functioning of a Kindle Fire, which I didn't really want. The problem with that is that sometimes that makes the apps wonky, and sometimes they don't work at all. Sometimes they don't install at all. It's really it's a 4-step process, and each one of those steps has many variables in it. So I'm never completely sure of what's going to happen. Like, for instance, with this one, you can see video for Kindle, email for Kindle. Those aren't the actual apps for Gmail or for YouTube. And I don't know why that is. I'm assuming it's because I couldn't find the original apps, but I didn't leave any status note on this thing, so I don't know for sure. Then I was thinking, okay, so it won't do email. You can't check your email on this, and it won't really do YouTube. Those portal versions of things are always really bad. But do you want? Then I asked myself, do you want email or YouTube on this thing? This is not the one device to rule them all. I wonder if it could be made to be that, but it isn't. Probably the way to make it that would be to root it completely, and I didn't do that. All I did was put the Google Play Store on here. It's possible to do much worse than that, or much more, depending on how you view it. I could root the thing completely and then put Linux on it or something like that, and then it would be just an Android device with slow pickup, and even the pickup maybe would change. It's got a lot more capability than you need to use it as an Amazon device. But I was thinking, well, what if I were to remove if those little fake apps don't work all that well? What if I were to remove them and just use this to read? It's perfect handheld size for reading. But then you see what I mean, right? You see what the problem is, which is that if I suddenly say to myself, well, if I compromise with this thing and just use it for reading, well, then I've got another device. I already have a Kindle, a Paperwhite. So now I've got another device, and I'm just multiplying devices. I just like this. And ever since the old Barnes & Noble Color, any of you remember those? Metal backing, the weird little lanyard hook on the bottom. Barnes & Noble's first color handheld device had a control bar, and it was. I have a Barnes & Noble Color. I don't think David Murphy was ever able to get it to work, and it wouldn't matter anyway because it probably has specs just of a rock. But it showed me that I really like this form factor. I like a, a metal or plastic thing with this form factor. I like it more than this. I don't think I have a Kindle near me. I like it. I like this form factor more than the squat nature of the Kindle, which I guess means that what I should do is just uh, either try to load the Kindle Play Store again on this thing so that it's better, or maybe get another version of this, look around for something this size. Like I have this thing. This is a Samsung. It's basically the same dimensions. I like them to be a little thinner and a little taller. This is basically the same thing. This thing I can't get to do anything at all. No idea why. No idea why. I charged it overnight. It won't do anything at all. And I grabbed this thing, which one of you very kindly sent me, the big new Kindle Fire. And one of you sent it to me with the keyboard there, the keyboard case that wraps all around. It not only does the keyboard case wrap around, but it's really convenient. It doesn't feel weird at all. It's a little bit big. This, I think, is my ideal form factor for reading. And I don't know, I was thinking, you went to the bother of reviving this thing, maybe just make it a reading device. Maybe, I don't know. I always go through these periods. What do I want from my tech? Do I want a whole bunch of specific use cases, or do I want one device to rule them all? What do I want from my tech? I honestly don't know sometimes. The idea has been floated that maybe what I want is a phablet, a big phone. This thing is the iPhone 15, I think. What is this? What are you? Let's see here. It's small like an early iPhone, but it's not an early iPhone. It's the iPhone 11 Pro. That's what this is. The iPhone 11 Pro. But it's a small device. You can get a cell phone that's twice this size. David actually has one that's twice this size, and he says it's incredibly comfortable to read on, and probably would be a dream to film on. I don't know what it would be like to work on it, to type on it. I think that would. I don't know. I don't know. I always go through this. I always go through this whole process that surely maybe lurking in one of these devices is the one device to rule them all. I wish it could be this, even with the cat case. In fact, especially with the cat case. There's something funny about that. Even with the cat case, I wish it could be this. I always wonder, the cat case has this little slip here for stylus. Does that mean that this thing supports stylus use? I wonder if this will tell me what it is. Before I switch to the chat. Now I'm going down a tech rabbit hole. Guests, when they come here in person, always have to worry about tech rabbit holes. I wonder if this will tell me what this is. Oh, God. Notification, security, parental controls, my account, device options. Is that what will tell me? This is the Kindle Fire HD 8, 6th edition. So God knows how many there have been since then. I have no idea. I love the form factor of this thing. And I love, the case is really tough, and it has origami features to it. So you could, I could set this up as a stand. Never even really thought about what it would be like to film on this. I can't imagine it would be better than the M1 MacBook Air, but maybe the audio would be better. I don't know. I don't know. See, this is what I'm doing. So I will just keep doing this all night if I chase my tail like this. So let's go over, let's go over to the chat. Very sorry that I did not give you all advance warning here. I wish that I had noticed that I had the thing on private the whole time. I'll try better if we ever do another Stevestream. So Nietzsche Wig was hoping for Stevestream, and lo and behold, yes, here we are. Gandhi Angle says, I don't like yapping dogs. Have one in my building all hours, and its owner ignores it. No, you're right. I don't like that either. Not necessarily because of the noise, but because that's a miserable dog. Have you talked to the owner about it? is the owner aware of the fact that that is not a trivial thing, that no one ever has any peace because of their dog, and that it's their responsibility? Have you talked to the owner about it? I imagine that you have. I had that happen to me once, where I was living once. I was listening to a dog bark in misery all day long. For one day, I put up with it. Then I put a note on the person's door. I went to where they were. I put a note on their door saying, your dog cried in misery all day long without stopping for even a minute, all day long until you came home. Can we meet to fix this? And they didn't respond at all. I didn't threaten anything. I said, can we meet to fix this? And they didn't respond at all. And it started to happen the next day. And I went over, pounded on the door, was ready to leave a note, but the guy was actually there. He opened the door and I said, you got my note. This is going to stop. We're not going to do this. I'm not going to negotiate with you. I'm not going to chat with you about this. I'm not going to learn how to live with this. Take me to the dog, or I'll bring the police here. I won't hesitate at all. And I'll call them every day. Every hour of every day, I will stop everything I'm doing. I will make you the project of my life unless you fix this. This is a trivial thing to fix, but you have to fix this. So take me to the dog. And it turned out he was a very nice guy. He was just way over his head. He'd inherited, needless to say, it was a beagle. He'd inherited a beagle puppy, and he already had pets, lizards, big lizards that he fed live worms to. He had no idea what to do. Couldn't leave the thing around with his lizards all there. He gave, I forget the dumb cartoon name that he gave to that beagle, but I looked the length of his apartment, saw right away the beagle in a wire cage in the kitchen, and he said, yeah, once you just go out into the kitchen and stand there, and once he's used to you, maybe I'll be able to open the cage. And I walked out of the kitchen and said to the beagle in our own language, I have been listening to you all day. Hello, boy. How are you, boy? And he melted. I said, I'm not going to stand here. If you just give me access to the dog, it's not going to do anything. And he opened the cage, and I took the beagle out of the cage. And I said to the guy, I want to walk your dog. According to him, he has never been exercised in his entire life. I want to walk your dog for a good long time. I want to get him nice and tired. So where's his leash? And I will bring him back. When we're done, we'll come back here, and then you and I can talk. He didn't put up any resistance at all. I don't think I was giving him much of an option. I'm a very kindly and gentle old man on this channel, but when I'm displeased, it's pretty obvious that I'm displeased. It comes off me. One person years ago said it comes off you like waves. So I did. I walked the dog. Of course, I named him. I called him Boyd, B-O-Y-D, and he didn't even know his other name, so that was the name he answered to. When I got back, I told the owner, you want to call him this when you want his attention. But what I really want here is to fix this. You cannot have this dog. So I don't know what we're going to do here. What would you like to do here? I want to help, but you have to recognize that this isn't working. You can't have him in a cage all day long, miserable, alone, crying. And you're not a bad guy, so you know that. And he agreed. He agreed with everything. He agreed the whole time, right down the line. And he said, well, I think the obvious thing here is for you to take him. He seems to love you. Could you do that? At the time, Lucy and Malin were 2 years old. And Malin was still fairly accepting of other dogs. So I did take him. I took in Boyd. And he ate with the girls, and he hung out on the bed with us. And I thought I could feel it already. I could feel the undertow. And I thought, if I keep him, they will be afterthoughts. I'll still take care of them the whole of their lives, but they're not beagles. I thought this would be unfair. And there are plenty of people out there who will want a well-behaved and now well-trained little beagle puppy. And I found a family that did very much. Oh my, they still do send me pictures sometimes. But they sent me pictures for years of how happy Boyd was, how happy he was. I vetted them fairly aggressively, but even so, you could still be surprised. And I wasn't. It was the right thing to do. I knew myself well enough to know it was the right thing to do. But anyway, that was only the second comment. That took me 20 minutes. You shouldn't let it go. A nonstop barking dog is a miserable dog. If you heard an adult crying and weeping, all day long in an apartment, you wouldn't do nothing. Anyway, Auntie Gaia says, does Freeda go after squirrels too? My little Shih Tzu / Terrier Augie does. She would if I let her. She's never off a leash. She would go after squirrels if I let her, absolutely. And oh God, the havoc that she would reach, they are simply not fast enough. I don't know if she's ever going to slow down. Surely she will when she's 10, but she is unbelievably fast when she is in prey mode. I just don't let her. That's all. I mean, she has a leash. There's never any tension on it. It swings like a loop between us, but she does have a leash. She's not free to just bolt off and do something like that. This one just caught us both, so it caught me by surprise completely. Gabby Angle says, you like mice in your place? Sure, they're wonderful roommates. They're not noisy. They're not destructive like rats can be. Rats will eat at plaster. Although rats are fairly adorable too, but they'll eat at plaster, and they're also more opportunistic. They'll come right out and destroy your food, or even attack a little dog. Freeda, what you doing, baby? But mice, they're completely harmless. They're completely harmless. In fact, from a long background, there's nothing late at night. There's nothing that feels more homey than the almost indecipherable sounds of a little mouse working around on the kitchen counter. What are the crumbs that were left? What is here? What about the big droplets of water that are still on the metal at the base of the sink in the kitchen? That's drinking. That's all the water a mouse needs in a day. Anyway, Auntie Gaia says, LOL, sounds like you answered my question already in your opening rant. Sorry, we're a long way off from that opening rant. Becky Fair says, wow, that is a story. Natural selection at work. Well, yeah, but Freeda, what are you doing? Come here, baby. We're talking about you. You want to come over here? You let your fans see you? Come on, you can do it. There you go. Ooh, there you go, baby. Let me get that old tech out of your way. Oh, slams right into me. Let's see here. Omid says, next case of a serial killer. It's Freeda. No. Well, she is a serial killer, yes, but it doesn't count. And I am, oh my God. I have moved on, at least temporarily, from serial killers to something even worse. And you would think, what could possibly be worse? How many of you, during that period when I was studying serial killers, the major serial killers, how many of you were saying, good if you're getting money, but it is so soiling to put yourself into those cases. It's just so soiling. It sticks with you. And you were absolutely right. It does. There is no peace when you're thinking about that. And you might think there's nothing worse, and there is. There's one thing that's worse, and that is family annihilators, so-called family annihilators, where the person is guilty of killing multiple people, but they're all family members. I'm hoping that this is a very short thing. I'm hoping that this doesn't go on for long. Oh my God. If I have to learn one more detail about Chandler Halverson, I'll be sick to my stomach. Rasmus says, what's a non-fiction topic you wish someone would write a book about, but no one has it? Oh my God. How much time do you have? There are a million. Friends of mine have told me in my life that I'm very good at coming up with ideas for books. One person, an old friend of mine years and years ago, said, you do this without fail. Come up with ideas for books. And we have people who come up with ideas for books to pitch them to authors. Hey, would you be willing to write something on this subject for us? We think you might be a good match for it. And I got it. This friend said over wine and calzones years and years ago, said, I got to tell you, we have two people on staff who do that. They're nowhere near as good as you are. Nowhere near as good. Probably because they haven't read as much as you have. They don't know the market as well as you do. The person actually wanted me to apply for work. And I asked my standard question. Would it require pants? And he said, oh, yeah, that's right. Because the people know I'm largely unemployable. Although you'd think in the age of Zoom, I would be employable. But I can think of a million topics like that. Oh my God, I could go on forever. Historical, contemporary, you name it. I could go on forever. Auntie Guy says, damn nature, you scary. Well, scary for that squirrel. Although, to be honest, I don't know how much the squirrel knew. That's how I'm solving my conscience right now. Is that I don't think the squirrel even knew what was happening. I think it was over too fast. It's unbelievably fast. Freeda is unbelievably fast in a situation like this. Just literally a blur, so that your eyes are looking at the scene. I was looking at the scene. I still could not see her move. So that's what I'm going to tell myself. Nietzsche and Wig says, just saw Hamilton. How's he doing? My first time attending a musical in person, not counting one I attended by accident when I actually meant to see an Ibsen play. Good score would really improve an Ibsen play. Then again, a fire alarm at intermission would improve an Ibsen play. Needless to say, I'm not a fan of Hamilton. Stupid, vamping, threadbare lyrics. But congratulations on your first musical. Good Lord. I don't even remember what mine was. I don't even remember. And Nietzsche and Wig is back. I loved it. Fantastic numbers, brilliant singing. Okay, I should have read your future comments. I don't know about the singing. I wasn't there. The numbers are not good. And the only reason that I'm not jumping all over you is because this is your first musical. You're probably unfamiliar with how good musicals sound. Anti Guy says, I only saw the televised version of Hamilton that was on Disney Plus. Winston Vidal says, do you have the same affinity for bugs in the house? We didn't have any bugs in the house, mercifully. Every once in a while, the damp of the bathroom will, in the late hours, and then I bring out one of those long millipede type things that I think live underneath the baseboards and in the moisture underneath the sink and whatnot. Those spaces are absolute. They're beacons for nighttime activity. I'm sure that my bathroom, like yours, before you get on your high horse, exactly like yours, swarms with that kind of activity in its own kind of diorama. All of its, there are all sorts of dramas that are enacted on the walls of your bathroom, in the corners, underneath your sink, on the walls of your shower. And then it all goes away as daylight starts. All of that disappears until late at night. The only reason I know that something like that is because I see those rooms at hours of the night that most people don't. So, and I know that no house is free of it, but not elsewhere. No, certainly not cockroaches or anything like that. I'm pretty sure that cockroaches would not get a free pass from Freeda. I'm pretty sure she would kill them. I don't know. They seem big enough and they skitter. The skittering seems to be the thing that sets her off. I don't think she'd ignore them. Let's see here. Nietzsche and Wig says, never seen that one. Nietzsche and Wig says, is Lin-Manuel Miranda in it? Well, he wouldn't be in every roadshow. No. He made his pile of money, and that's enough. Leo Percar says, hello, Steve. Do you like Sarah Douglas fantasy books? Not particularly, no. A little bit leaden. Anti-Guy says, fans of Hamilton, do yourself a favor and read Burr, for God's sake, as well. Well, yeah, or watch 1776. If you want to stick in musical mode, watch 1776. Or come over here for Wine and Calzones when David Murphy is here, and we'll sing it for you. Leo Pergar says, did you read The Dirty Dust in the original Irish? I have read the original Irish and also all of the extant English translations. I think there are 4 extant English translations. There was one year, I think it was when I had this channel, where we got 2 versions of it. I think one was Graveyard Clay and the other was The Dirty Dust. In the same time, in like a span of months. I think I had this channel when that happened. Let's see here. M-A-N-N-E. How do I say that? Is it Mane? What are your favorite books by Chaucer? Well, I know as a Chaucerophile, I know I'm supposed to say something erudite here, like the Book of the Duchess or especially Troilus and Cresside, but it's the Canterbury Tales for me. Howdy says, hi, Steve. Do you have a preference between Edmund Spenser or Philip Sidney? Aren't they the same person? I thought they were the same person. Also, what are your thoughts on Mary Sidney? JFK or Nietzsche and Wig. RFK Jr. is an utter disgrace to his father's name and legacy. Well, it doesn't often happen, Nietzsche and Wig, but in this case, we completely agree. That doesn't often happen. I'm sure it won't happen in the rest of this chat, but we completely agree. He's a disgrace. Gandhi Angle says, I'm deciding the best course of action, whether it is best to contact the office or speak directly to my neighbor. Oh, about the dog. Always direct approach first. Don't tattle. Unless you have to, don't tattle. We live in a tattling society. Don't do that. Who knows what other problems the office might come down on them for? Who knows how much worse it might be? Keep in mind the example of my neighbor. If I had called somebody else, I don't know if that building had a manager. It was kind of a rat trap. It was a wonderful rat trap, but it was kind of a rat trap. But if I'd called somebody else, animal welfare, the police, God help us, I might threaten to do that. But always you want to approach the person first and be non-confrontational. Be somebody that they can actually open up to. Don't make them defensive. There's someone else's life on the line here. I guarantee you that dog is miserable. So somebody else's life is on the line here. So you have to be delicate. Because if you're overly confronting, well, they might decide the easiest way for me to solve this problem is for me to drown this dog or just dump them on the side of the road or get rid of them at a high kill animal shelter. You don't want that. Martin says, I like Graveyard Clay and the Dregs of the Day just arrived in the mail. I'll be reading it this week. Anti-Guy says, you can't be president with a voice like he has. Sorry. Well, the voice is the least disqualifying thing, but I agree. It's horrifying. Gandhi Angle says, were you in an apartment or a house when you confronted your neighbor? It was a big building that was apartments. It wasn't really an apartment building. It was a little bit tough to describe. It had been, 100 years ago, it had been a tenement building with a wraparound bar on the first floor. And over the years, that first floor bar was converted into an apartment, and all of the floors were subdivided, probably illegally, with all sorts of cheap plasterwork and whatnot. Gandhi Angle says, give me a dignified, stoic English bulldog every time, adorable face and temperament. All dogs have adorable temperaments, bub. Okay. Nietzschean Wig is responding to Anti-Gaia. Howdy says, Steve, what are your thoughts on the Wycliffe and William Tyndale translation of the Bible? Are they as beautifully written as the King James? Well, the King James borrows liberally from them. But no, the King James has, for me, has a particular magic that they don't have. Anti-Guy says, speaking of serial killers, oh God, were we? I suppose we were. I tried to get through Confessions of a Serial Killer, the series of interviews with the BTK killer. It was so grotesque. Yeah, he's pretty grotesque. You keep, by the end of reading long profiles of him, you want him to do something Mephistophelian. You want him to not be quite so businesslike about it, because that's the scary thing about this. And of course, that's the scary thing. That's the one and only scary thing about the Chandler Halverson case, is that he's one of my boys. He's completely lackluster, slackshod, sad sack of a normal kid who kills and dismembers his parents. The dismembering part, that he's different from a couple of the other famous ones where you could spot a mile away if there was something wrong with him. With him, he was just a loser. That's all. Ryan says, Steve, I've loved every Victorian book you've recommended except Vanity Fair. While Middlemarch and House of Mirth grabbed my soul, VF felt populated by dislikable gossips. What am I missing? Well, I don't want to be judgmental. You are missing something, because it is brilliant. But it might be that it's having fun or doing its business in a way that just doesn't resonate with you right now. Maybe in 10 years it will. I'm still waiting for that to happen with Dickens. If I can wait for 80 years, then you can wait. I'm glad you like most of them. That's all. Albert, would you ever be willing to write fiction yourself? Why, Albert, are you new here? I have written a great deal of fiction. That's why I was lamenting in the last Stevestream that I'm not currently writing fiction, because I really miss it when I'm not doing it. I really miss it. It is so much fun, of a kind that cannot be simulated anywhere else. Yeah, I've written about a dozen novels purely for my own entertainment, purely because it's so much fun. And up until this month is Camp NaNoWriMo. Up until this month, I barely ever missed a NaNoWriMo event of any kind. Happily involved in them. But not right at the moment, no. But I have written a large amount of fiction myself. Gandhi Angle says, thoughts on Keanu Reeves' book, The Book of Elsewhere? I don't think I have a copy. I don't know of it. I don't know it. I haven't read it. Michael Lombardo says, are you still using the large water bottle with all the heat in July? How much water do you drink in a day? I am using the large water bottle. Yes. And when David Murphy was last here, we went to a big box store. I don't go to them on my own because I don't drive. We went to a big box store and we got a filter pitcher. So it filters, you pour the water into the top, the filter filters out impurities and whatnot and fills the container below. And I drink from that all the time. All the time. I go through the water bottles right over there, and I go through that several times a day. Yeah, as should you. And not as a function of heat, but as a function of proper hydration. Since an estimated 81% of all Americans are dehydrated all the time, you should do that. You should drink a lot. And a key yardstick here that you want to use is when you urinate, is there any color in your urine? If you can detect even a little yellow, you are dehydrated. You are not hydrating enough. So drink more. Absolutely drink more, heat or not. Nietzsche and Wig, thoughts on Leonard Bernstein? How much time do you have? And don't get me started on that movie, that Bradley Cooper movie. Oh my God. Nietzsche and Wig says specifically, what do you think of West Side Story and the new film about his life? Oh, there you go. Should have looked on ahead of time. I think West Side Story is incredibly overrated. Some of the songs really hit now, but only for nostalgia, only because I remember them when the show was new. But the film about his life, The Maestro, oh my God. Oh my God. It was, as I suspect we are going to see for the next 20 years, it was a film about Bradley Cooper and his tobacco addiction. That's what it was. If the money people for The Maestro had come to him ahead of time and said, well, we'll bankroll this movie because we like your famous last one with Lady Gaga, so we'll bankroll this movie, but we want you to do it without Bernstein smoking at all. Now, Bernstein smoked all the time, except when he was on camera, on stage, in tuxedo, actually conducting in front of an audience at the Met. He smoked all the time. And more importantly, that fact was the only reason that Bradley Cooper wanted to do a movie about him. And if those money people had come to him and said, this could be 6 Oscars, you'll certainly be nominated, we'll make the movie, you can have all the money that you want, but you can't smoke, and neither can anyone else. You just have to tell the story without that. Bradley Cooper would instantly have said no. So, quite apart from the ego job that he gave himself the whole time. Anyway, Candy Angle says, I like spiders. I have one that visits my balcony nightly. I don't think Freeda would put up with spiders. If they were anywhere near her, I don't think she would do it. Albert says, Bernstein is one of the great conductors. No, but that's okay. You may not be familiar with great conductors. That's all. You may not be familiar with them. His interpretation of Mozart's Requiem is almost perfect. Again, you may just not be familiar with other conductors. That's all. We live here on the Stevestreams in the warm balm of loving acceptance. The reason that your opinions differ from mine is not necessarily because you're evil. Morphiel says, do you read African literature? And if so, what are your thoughts? Well, I read Nigerian fiction from Nigerian expats. I could hardly do otherwise. It's 60% of the American so-called literary fiction new release list in any season. Literature by people who are in Africa, currently living in Africa. There was one that was, I don't read it as much as I should. It's a vibrant literary scene. There was one, I don't have it within reach. I don't have anything I need within reach. There was one that was profiled, one that was reviewed in the New York Times Book Review this Sunday, I think, that sounded intriguing. Oh, wait, where did you go? You disappeared. The chat has jumped. Let's go back. It was African literature. There we go. Nietzsche and Wig, Bernstein's version of Shostakovich's 7th, Mahler's 6th and 3rd, and his recording of Mahler's Leader with Thomas Hampson are my faves. Well, see, there you go. With all the music that you just listed, who would even know if he'd conducted them poorly? How would you even be able to tell? Leo Bakari, have you ever had human neighbors who fought all the time and made noise? Did you do something about it? Yeah, with humans, when humans make noise, it's completely different than with a dog. With a dog, there's a dog's life on the line. That dog's life is in the hands of the human who is letting them be rude. They don't want to be. A happy dog will not bark incessantly at nothing. With dogs, when dogs are in the equation, it's different. When it's humans, no, I I have dealt with it, and I don't put up with it at all. So I make sure that it's a pattern. At one time, could be anybody, could be a birthday party or whatever, or even an aberration. But after that, I make sure to say, like, I'm a neighbor of yours. I'm within easy earshot. I can't hear anything that I want in my own life. I can't play my own music. I can't have conversations. I need the noise coming out of this place to stop. And again, I do it non-confrontational and friendly the first time, but if it goes to a second time with a human, I say exactly what I said to that guy, or would have said to that guy, which is, look, I'm not joking around here. I'm not paying to live where I live so that I can listen to your music and your talking and your arguing. So you're either going to stop all that, or I'm going to make you my project. I'm going to put everything else in my life on hold and make you my project. So I will contact your employer 4 times a day by phone. Are you aware that employee so-and-so makes this much noise? Could you please say something to them? I am a neighbor and I can't get any sleep. Contact any other employers. Contact, and if they have a spouse, contact their employers. And just tell them 4 times a day, are you aware of, could you please have a word with them? And also call the police for a noise disturbance complaint 4 times a day. The 2 times that I have done that, the cops reacted. I talked to them. I had them over and said, do you think I like calling you over here 4 times a day? Listen to this. I'm shouting because I have to shout just to hear you when we're standing in my own foyer. And they were just standing there nodding, saying, yeah, this is crazy. This is absolutely out of control. No, we understand you're not doing this just to prank us. And the 2 times that I had to do that, eventually they said to the people involved, look, we're not coming back here without results. If we come back here again and this whole building is vibrating to the noise that you're making, we're arresting all of you. We'll arrest all of you. And then you can deal with lawyers and release dates and have a criminal record. That's where you are now. If you make us come back, you're going into the system, and we won't give a crap when you get out. Some people are so dedicated to their mindless making of noise, to their mindless rudeness, that they'll actually let it go that far. One of the 2 groups involved was just this. The old phrase in my neighborhood was white trash, this horrible, trashy family, just a whole family, adults, children, everything. And the 10th time that the cops came over, they said, look, this has to stop. And if we come back here, we're arresting all of you, including the children. We'll put the children into the system in foster care, in different foster care systems. So you all have rap sheets. I don't need to run your names to know that. You all have rap sheets. So you're not going to get out this afternoon. If you get into the system, you're going to have a lot of legal headaches to deal with. You'll be in the system for a while, which means your kids will be without you. You won't get them back. It'll take a year to get them out of the system and back to you, because not only do you have to get out of the system, but you have to get back on your feet. You'll have lost your job. You have to get a new one. You have to show social services that you have a steady income, a normal place to live. In other words, if you keep playing your music, your tunes this loud, we will come back and completely rip apart your family. Your freedom will be lost. Your children will be lost. Their lives will be ruined. All of that if you don't turn your goddamn music down. So, sometimes it comes to that. Anyway, sorry, a little hot on the collar there. Good Lord. Gandhi Angles, really enjoying The Editor by Sarah Franklin. Love that it's sending me down different rabbit holes, like the poetry of Theodore Roethke. Well, sorry about that rabbit hole. Sid says, hi, Steve. Are you reading anything for Summer of Gay Romance tonight? What? What is Summer of Gay Romance? Why didn't David Murphy tell me about this? What is Summer of Gay Romance? I've never heard of this. Is that a booktube event? Auntie Guy says, bugs are like little cannibal aliens. Looking at close-up of a praying mantis is terrifying. I confess I have actually done that. At times when I have been in the bathroom very, very late at night, like 3 or 4 at night, you turn the light on, and they're all, if you wait and you are still, they know the light is on, but they know that it's a time when they're usually out and about, hunting for food, hunting for mates, that sort of thing. And sometimes I have seen tiny little house spiders, come out of the corners or whatnot, and they are fascinating to watch. They are alien life forms. It really is weird. Evil Josu says, any tips for finding the right title for a short story, or maybe pitfalls to avoid? Well, there are plenty of pitfalls to avoid. No idioms, no turns of phrase, no slang, no cliches. And also the tips, I would say, is nothing easy. your title will almost always be available in your story. You just have to look for it. And of course, feel free to send me the story. I will read it and give you a title. I'd be happy to do that. Kevin J.N. says, I love 1776. I really enjoyed Hancock asking, where is New Jersey? Somewhere between New York and Pennsylvania. Yes. Yes. Or when Representative Morris from New York is describing why nothing ever gets done in the New York legislature. And Hancock can only be sympathetic. Matt Sheridan, howdy, Steve. Also, big hello to my fellow nerds in the chat. Aslan says, hello, what would you say to the best fantasy book of the last 20 years? Oh, my. So I'd have to... none of them really stick in the head. It might be the Marlon James. But that isn't... I don't know that you'd call that whole series one book like you would The Lord of the Rings. Oh, I don't know. I'd have to think about it. Maybe Piranesi? Maybe Piranesi. Gandhi Angle says, RFK tried to have his ex-wife who committed suicide committed to an insane asylum. Well, yeah, he's got a... You come up with a lot. You can come up with a lot of details like that. Anti-Gaia Steve, lately I've been going through Evans Reich trilogy. Seeing the parallels with the MAGA movement is so crazy to me. I know. Coming to the Third Reich and the Third Reich in power, you practically only have to change out the proper names. It's virtually identical. It makes me wonder how these people sleep at night. It makes me wonder how they have to know. MAGA people have to see the parallels, and not all of them are illiterate bumpkins. Some of them can read those books. They have to see the parallels. They're too obvious to miss. How do they go to sleep at night knowing, okay, I am indisputably on the wrong side of history. I am indisputably one of the bad guys. Or do they just like that because it gives them power? I don't know. Colombian Thunder. Hi, Steve. What's your favorite presidential biography? Good Lord. Of them all? Do you have any idea how many presidential biographies I've read? I don't know. I honestly don't know. It might be Dutch by Edmund Morris. It might be. Although Nigel Hamilton's book on his trilogy on FDR is really good as well. I don't know that I can narrow it down to one. I don't know. Michael Lombardo says, my library had a children's program last night where the kids read to visiting doggies. Yesterday was a husky and a labradoodle. Aww. Anti-Guy says, a lot of time people mistake dehydration for hunger. No wonder so many people are obese in this country. I know of almost nobody that hydrates correctly. And the only reason I'm not sanctimonious or more sanctimonious than usual about that is because I used to be one of those people. And then finally, I got a water bottle and decided, drink all the time. Like all these health experts say, drink all the time. And oh my God, like I've said many times on my channel, I can't quite describe the difference. But oh my God, was there a difference? Oh my God. The closest I could describe is that suddenly it felt like everything, all the gears were lubricated. Suddenly it felt like everything was just working the way it should. I would never go back. I would never want to go back. Man says, well, I'm Scandinavian, so you pronounce the E as in E in bed. So manna. Okay. Andrew says, did you ever cross paths with Albert Goldman? How do you rate him as a biographer and critic? I never crossed paths with him, but I tend to like his stuff. Anti-Guy says, consuming 3 cups of coffee a day or whatever the average is certainly doesn't help too. I know. Oh my God. We're talking about dehydration, but then we can go on to talk about the other 2 elephants in the room, which is coffee drinks that Americans have them by the millions and millions of gallons every day. And also those huge, giant buckets of sugary drinks. They've got shots of caffeine in them, so they aren't called Slurpees, but they basically are. They're all sugar, just huge amounts of it every day, one of those things. Oh, God, help us. To say nothing of the liter bottles of actual soda, of tonic, as we used to call it in Southeast, of actual soda that's just pure multicolored sugar. Just, Gandhi Angles, asterisk, getting Biden's eat chest. Okay, I'm not sure I want to know what that meant. Sid says, I agree that most people are probably not drinking enough water, But a nutritionist I talked to recently actually said that no color in your urine is a sign that you are overhydrated and isn't healthy. All right, maybe a tinge of yellow, maybe a tinge, but that hardly knocks down the point, right? As I'm sure you would agree, and your nutritionist friend would agree. How many Americans, their pee is bright traffic sign yellow, and they're happy about that. That's amusing to them. Nietzsche and Wig, did you ever consider living somewhere other than Boston, and why did you decide to stay there? Well, I have lived in other places than Boston. I've lived in a handful of places. If by live you mean where you're no longer a tourist, where you actually have mail and whatnot. I've lived in a number of places other than Boston. But I come back here because I love it. It's my favorite place. So I'm not living in Hermosa Beach. I'm not living in Austin. I'm not living in Hilo. I'm not living in U.S. Virgin Islands. I'm not living in Venice or on the west coast of Ireland. I'm living here because I love it here. Auntie Guy is responding to Sid. Oh, wait, and then the chat jumps. See, because the chat doesn't like it when you all talk to each other any more than I do. You're supposed to be eyes on the prize. But let's see here. Oh my God, there's a lot of chat here. Goodness gracious. Let's see here. Let's see here. Gandhi Angle says, I loathed the movie Maestro. It was a great disservice to Bernstein. Yeah, it wasn't meant to be anything but a service to Brad Cooper. Leo Percara says, do you like Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf more as a movie, play, or reading material? As a movie, hands down. I hate Elizabeth Taylor, but movie, hands down. Nietzsche and Wig says it focused too much on his sex life. Omid says, rooting for Shahnameh to make the top 20 since there hasn't been any Persian poetry on your list. Yeah, the top 20. Coveted not top 20. John Nemzov, Nemzov, do you like Itzhak Perlman as a conductor? I'm not sure I've ever heard Itzhak Perlman as a conductor. I don't think I ever have. Nietzsche and Wig, Bernstein is definitely a great conductor, and I say this as an admirer of Karajan. Oh, God help us. Okay, you list a long list of conductors, and only one of them is great. And it's not Bernstein. And it's not most of these other guys either. But that's okay. That's okay. We are loving acceptance in this Stevestream. Gandhi Angle says, why does Joyce Carol Oates get such short shrift? I think because she's so prolific. There's something about that just kills it in the critic world. That just kills it in the critic world. They stop taking you seriously if you produce that much. That was Anthony Burgess's big ongoing joke about E.M. Forster, is that he made it déclassé to be productive. He just barely wrote a handful of novels and then died. But all of them are classics. So, and naturally, Burgess could write 3,000 words before breakfast. So naturally, he took that personally. Morphiel says, is that a painting or photograph on the wall? That is a painting. That's a painting by Hans Holbein. Jenny Park says, watching at 2x speed to catch up. Can't believe you streamed without me. God, how annoying must I be at 2x speed? I don't even want to think about it. I live for these digressions. I've been doing a lot of digressing in this stream. Very sorry about that. Joshua Crabo says, hey, hello, Steve. What are your favorite conductors? Who are your favorite conductors? Well, Nietzsche and Wig mentions one of them. If you don't mind, having your symphony conducted by a Nazi. But there are others. Gandhi Angle says, that is threatening your neighbor, though. Tricky territory. No. Conversation never happened. What are you talking about? I went over and knocked on his door. I asked him, could you keep down the noise? He says, you threatened him? Well, that's crazy. I didn't. The conversation never happened. I didn't. The conversation happened, but I didn't threaten him. Of course not. He said. No. But the civil injunctions, the civil criminal injunctions against threatening your neighbor are in no way meant to shield your neighbor from making your life unlivable. Not in any way. There are all kinds of things to say to your neighbor and all kinds of ways to say it. But I trust me, you can get your point across. And the main point is, this is going to stop. It's not going to stop a month from now. It's not going to stop a year from now. I'm not going to get used to it. It's going to stop, and it's going to stop soon. It's going to be unavoidable for you. You are going to stop this soon. That is the main point to make, whether you specify the instrumentation or not. Anti-Gaia says, "Oh God, Steve, the neighbor story sounds horrific." Well, it all worked out for the best, and I, not knock on wood, but no such problems now, none at all, not even close. No matter how crowded the neighborhood gets, I lost my field across the street for 20 years. I had a field across the street, an unobstructed view of the hills and the sunset, and a whole row of condominiums went up all along that side of the street, with 2, 3, 4 families in every one of them. That's the addition of 250 people at least, right across the street. And even there, I just got a bunch more fun neighbors, a bunch more great dogs to know. Nobody wants to live in that kind of horrible abyss of chaos and noise. Nobody wants that. But anyway, Nietzsche and Wig Bruckner is a composer I like more and more the more I listen to him. I confess, he kind of grew on me as well. For a while, I didn't like him at all, and then he did kind of grow on me. So you're crawling back into my good graces. Joshua says, "I think Bernstein's Schumann symphonies are great." You are mistaken. No harm in being mistaken. There's no shame in it. We can admit when we're mistaken, can't we? All of you should pull up folding chairs in a semicircle, and then one by one, you should stand up and say, "Hi, my name is Joshua. I once disagreed with Steve." Is that going to be so hard? It'll be total anonymity. No one will know. And you'll be on the first step to healing. Gandhi says, "Why did you not contact your landlord before calling the police if you were in an apartment?" Because I don't want the no. I want consequences. Landlord's not consequences. The landlord wants the rent. The police want the noise laws obeyed, and they don't want to be bothered coming back to this place over and over again. I wanted to make sure my neighbor knew that I'm not going to let up on this, not for a single day. I'm not going to stop until you behave yourself or move. That's it. Those are the only two options. It's not going to be that you're going to somehow conform my behavior. You're not going to do that. If I am sitting in my apartment and I can't hear my own music because of you, you are going to change your behavior. Plain and simple. You're either going to change your behavior or going to change your location. Sid says, "Summer of gay romance is summer of sports." Of course. Oh, right. Oh, good. I forgot that. No, summer of sport. I need to concentrate I'm already thinking of August. I shouldn't be. There's a whole week left in July. But for August, I need to concentrate on Book Trek and Summer of Sport. In addition to Garb August, I need to concentrate on those two things because I've been way letting them go. Colombian Thunder, "Jumping spiders are very cute and friendly." Oh, do you think so? Do you? Nietzsche and Wing says, "A truly overrated conductor is Boulez." I might agree. You're still crawling back into my good graces. Blue Star Galaxy, "I hate the loud motorcyclists racing on the highway every weekend from 11 to 2 in the morning." Yeah, that sort of thing bothers me as well, but I don't know if it's just that I've adapted to being in the city, but I pay special attention to extenuating circumstances. That loud motorcyclist is not staying in one place, and he's not doing it all the time. He's obviously in his weekly schedule, in the personal constellation of things that he likes to do. Racing his motorcycle is one of those things. He doesn't do it all the time, and he doesn't do it in one steady place. Yes, he does make noise. Obviously, I get those people here, but I try to contextualize it. That is not anything you should complain about. That's just someone enjoying themselves. True, it's a little bit on the rude side, but it's not the same thing as you just coming home from work and turning all the dials up to 11 and just, I'm not really caring. I'm talking on the phone the whole time. I'm not listening to any of the noise that I'm making. I just want them all up like that. It makes me feel better. And I'm alone in the world. There was an apocalypse, and there's no one here. There's no other human being on Earth except me. So I might as well. What's to stop me? There's nobody here. That's a very different thing. Nietzsche and Wig says, "A composer I still don't get on with is Schoenberg." Well, you're into a classical music thing, aren't you? Lucky for us all that Richard Burton didn't play classical music, or he'd be in a twofer. Aaron says, "Good evening, Steve. I just watched a video called Romance Fantasy, Millennials Cry for Help on the channel Papa Meat. He's a great voice actor, and his readings are excerpts are hilarious." I don't know any of that. Anti-Guy says, "Didn't Philip Roth also try to have one of his wives committed? Terrible guy." Well, he was a terrible guy, but keep in mind, until just recently, comparatively, historically, it was pretty easy to do for a husband to commit his wife. Horrifying that one whole political party in this country wants to go back to that. It's just horrifying. Uh, uh, that's why I mean I'm intentionally not paying attention too much, but it's impossible to avoid the subject of the major power shift that's gone on in the democratic American politics. And honestly, I'm not I don't have any idea what's going on in Kamala Harris's camp. But honestly, the phrase that she used she just recently gave a speech that was aces. It was aces. Much as I like Joe Biden, it was nothing that he's been able to do in 30 years. And it was not her A game, which is kind of amazing to think of. But in that speech, at one point, she casually tossed off the phrase, "We won't go back." And if her people, her comms people, had any sense, that would be the motto, because that's exactly what the fascist party in this country wants. They want to go back to a time when there was no fault divorce, and when husbands can commit their wives if their wives get uppity. I'll commit you to an insane asylum. You'll get strapped down. You'll be fed intravenously. You won't be allowed out until I say you're sane. Imagine. Nietzsche and Whig is back. Corey Comparatori's, the guy who was killed at Trump's rally, social media is quite something to read. I'll take your word for it. I'm not going to do it. Let's see here. Nietzsche and Whig says, look up pictures of FDR Jr. What a hottie. Kevin says, Steve, how is Bro Watch coming along? Did you get a chance to witness the new Jordan Peterson interview with Elon Musk? Pure gold. I did. I watched it. I don't know why I did, but I did. It was pure gold. In one sense of the word, it was pure gold. Yeah. But Bro Watch is abysmal, and it's Brock's fault because he threw me off my game by being a nice guy. He should be a bad guy. That's what he should do. Oh no, it's too late because I've already done a Bro Watch on his channel. I need to pick a victim. I should probably do that, especially now that it's summer. Nietzsche and Whig says, I watched the 2014 Ken Burns Roosevelt documentary, and the pictures made my adolescent brain go wild. MF says, how do I stop feeling so overwhelmed every time I think about all the books I want to read? Well, it's easy to do. It's easy to say. It might not be so easy to do. Just remember that no matter what you read, in about 10 minutes, you're going to be dead. No matter what. No matter how much you read, no matter what you do, no matter what choices you make, in no time at all, you're going to be old. Macular degeneration will have set in. You won't be able to read. And then you'll be gone. And human society will continue for thousands of years. Human society continued for thousands of years before you. All the people, all the readers in that time, all went to their grave wanting to read more books. I know that on one level is an anxiety-inducing thought, but it should also be a relief. It means you're only ever going to do a piddling amount of the reading that you want to do. I'm here to help. Nietzsche and Whig is responding to Joshua. Let's see. Leo Picaro says, have you seen the corner of fantasy booktube that is against modern fantasy and its respective booktubers, and are all men who reject modernity and only read self-published stuff? They also hate you. I thought I knew every corner of booktube that hated me. There are quite a few of them, and I thought I knew them all. Who are these guys? No, I don't think I know what you're talking about. Would I know any of the channels? I'd probably praise some of them. And why do they hate me? Why do they hate me? I'm not a champion of modern fantasy. You just hate me on principle. Oh, you send me a link to one of them. Send me, or here in the chat, give me some examples so I can go and find them. It doesn't, once upon a time, 8 years ago, that would probably have bothered me. Something like that would probably bother me a lot more than it does now. I have all of you people. I have all sorts of people, all of you, a lot of you email me, a lot of you are in email correspondence with me, as long as you don't expect me to write 80-page dissertations. I have people who come to visit, friends that I've never met. They send me presents. I send them presents. It's like I always say on my channel, I've already got out of BookTube everything that I want. I could stop making videos and long digressive Steve streams. I would still have had everything that I want. I would still have gotten everything that I want. And the freakish number of videos and the live streams are just gravy on top of all that. As a friend of mine used to say, gravy on the cake. We all agreed, but I know a lot of people don't agree with that. But once upon a time, that would have bothered me. There are people out there dedicated to hating me. It doesn't anymore. It doesn't bother me at all anymore. I have all of you. We don't have to agree with each other. Look at how many times Nietzsche and Whig has been wrong just in the Steve stream. We don't have to agree with each other. We're still friends. And that extends beyond the live streams to a whole bunch of people that I know are out there. I know they're not faking it. It's just, I have all of that, and that feels so wonderful. That really is a backstop to prevent me from just flailing and saying, well, all of this is just bootless hostility. That feels wonderful. I really ought to thank all of you for it, but I don't want you getting out of your above your place. Well, no, the chat jumped. I want to know more about these guys who hate me. Gandhi Angle says, do you ever get to Dorchester? I went to St. Kevin's for grammar school. Sad to hear it became an apartment, but I guess that is better than the alternative. I do sometimes get to Dorchester, but only when I've got somebody here with a car. Otherwise, no. Once upon a time, when I lived in Southie, I would go over there much more often with the girls, but not anymore. No, it's all the way across town. Anti-Guy says, I would imagine Boston is great. I love the weird slopey streets you guys have there. Some are slopey, yeah. Gandhi says, I meant war chest. War chest instead of Dorchester? Worcester instead of Dorchester? Manas is, speaking of conductors, are you a fan of Friedrich Galius? No. Aslan says, what are your thoughts on Wars of Light and Shadow by Jenny Wirtz? I've never been a fan of Jenny Wirtz, not that much. I just don't see it all seems like going through the motions to me. I've never seen the spark of lightning that you want to be there. I want to know about these fantasy guys who hate me. That's still sticking in my mind. Colombian Thunder says, did you ever see the Bradley Cooper interview where he starts crying in front of Bernstein's family when he says he misses them? Hilarious. Yeah, I think I saw a part of that interview. The guy's full of sheepdip. He's an absolute raving egomaniac. Just raving. Monet Doyle says, hello, it's raining in Georgia this evening. Yes, you come on here often and say that it's raining in Georgia. I thought we'd be getting some of your rain today, but it never happened. Anti-Guy says, my favorite composer is Mozart. My least is Lunatic Wagner. Okay. Scott Jones says, I'm racking my brain trying to remember a post-apocalyptic subterranean sci-fi fantasy from the 80s, from either Del Rey or Tor, almost like Thundar the Barbarian, Dead Tech, and Monsters. Any ideas? So that could cover a lot. I'm thinking of Hero Destiny. I'm thinking of Sterling Lanier's books, The Unforsaken Hero and Hero's Journey. But it could also apply to a bunch of other stuff too. Those things immediately came to mind because you mentioned dead tech. And in The Unforsaken Hero, he is looking for dead tech. He's looking for the tech that they're hoping will save the world. But that would also apply to The Last Ranger by Craig Sargent, the sublime Last Ranger, some of which I may be rereading for Garb August. Andrew says, have you seen Joe Spivey's commentary on Hitchens, Why Women Aren't Funny? I suspect it's more sympathetic than yours. Yeah, I think it's fascinating that Joe is reading through Arguably. I did a read through of Arguably with somebody. Was it David Murphy? Somebody here on BookTube years and years and years ago. But I want that UK trade paperback that he has, that blue trade paperback. I really want that. Nietzsche and Wink says, it's bound to be more sympathetic than I would be because I hated that piece right from the beginning. I hated how it was clickbait before we even had the word clickbait. He doesn't mean a single word of it. It's just meant to outrage. And also, Hitchens knew that in addition to just fake outraging people, all of the defenses that he could make of his argument would allow him to be cartoonishly sexist in interviews. And sure enough, like clockwork, the media obliged. I would interview him and he would say, no, you just haven't got it yet, darling or sweetheart, when he didn't call women that in normal life. He got to act this Archie Bunker type stereotypical sexist just for the fun of it, just because, I don't know, he wanted attention or whatnot. But he knew better than to know that women can't be funny, or that the ones that are what did he say, bull dykes or something like that. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Nietzsche and Wig, I find Mozart tough. I like his operas and I'm meh about his symphonies. As for Wagner, I always warmed to him. Tristan and Isolde is boring, but I love Die Meistersinger. God, oh my God, what's wrong with you? Howdy says, Steve, would you rather have a conversation with Marjorie Kemp or Julian of Norwich? Neither one. They stunk to high heaven. Anti-Gaia says, I agree, you're not doing your neighbor a favor by allowing them to be a bad person. Right. Right. Uh, right. You're not doing them any favors in a larger, more philosophical sense. Uh, right. I don't know what about that is really bothering me, but something about that construction is. I'll have to figure that out. Aaron says people like being prolific means producing crap. They think being prolific means producing crap. It may be a different medium, but look at Prince, Michael Jackson, Frank Zappa. Every new piece is a practice that can make their next one better. Well, yeah, I mean, just in terms of simple performance, I'm not Joyce Carol's biggest fan, like Eric at Lonesome Reader. Uh, but even so, when critics say that someone like Joyce Carol is too prolific, I always want to say, all right, well, then that would mean you can do it, and you can't. That would also mean that if she's so prolific that anything she writes is poor, that you have a really good chance of picking something new of hers, and it'll be poor. It never is. So maybe she's just got better discipline than you're used to. Nietzsche and Wig says, apart from classical music, oh my God, oh God, okay. I live in the 60s music-wise. Any fellow 25-year-old Dean Martin, Tony Bennett, Andy Williams, and Jim Nabors fans here. 25 years old? Is that how old you are? Good Lord. I'm used to this much ingrained wrongness from people who are a lot older than you are. You need to come over here for wine and calzones. Stat. Bargav Dave, any thoughts on protests in Bangladesh regarding reservation for jobs? How do reservations like that go in general, like in India? I haven't watched. I don't know the story about the protests. Totally uninformed about that. The only news that I've been even distantly keeping up on is this enormous, unprecedented change in the American political landscape in the presidency. Anti-Guy says if he contacted the landlord, it would be a slap on the wrist. Yeah, the times that I have contacted the landlord got nothing. And I don't want nothing. I don't want, oh, well, it's a slow process, or, these things take time. I don't want anything like that. Nothing at all like that. If I'm sitting in my home and I can't hear my own music because of you, that has to change immediately. That's the only way that cities work. That has to change immediately. And a landlord won't do anything immediately. So Albert says, Nietzsche and Wig, oh God, not Wagner, please. Rena is reading, says, hi, my name is Rena, and I once made the mistake of doubting Steve. I will probably happen again. Don't you let it happen again. Repeat after me. Steve is always right. Steve is also being cuddled by his little girl, which is kind of adorable. I don't know why she does that. She doesn't usually get very affectionate until nighttime. Aaron says, I disagree with Steve all the time. He just can't hear me from Minnesota. Scott Jones says, the reason I asked about that 80s book, my parents threw out my paperbacks when I was at college. Oh, that's painful. I was highly displeased. I would love to track that book down, but can't remember the title. Yeah, your parameters are too broad. There were hundreds of books like that in the 80s and early 90s. Gandhi Angle says the plus side is a 5-month-old French bulldog is in the building. Adorable. Oh my, that is adorable. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell her worship. Jenny Park says, I doubted Steve about The Road. Big mistake. So I trusted and read Killer Angels and loved it. When it comes, I'm not talking about whether or not Tobey Maguire is going to win an Oscar for Seabiscuit. When it comes to books, I am trustworthy. I will never lead you wrong. And the reason, one of the ways I can show that I know that's true, I have more experience recommending books, good books to people than anyone in the world. And I happen to be here on YouTube. And the reason, one of the ways you know that I'm sure about that is that I routinely say to people, put me to the test. Don't take my word for it. If I recommend something, go and experience it, get it from the library for free, and put it to the test. As simple as that. It wasn't Killer Angels good. I just reread it myself. I'm so tempted to do a read-along of it. Nietzsche and Wig says, I listened to my first opera. Again, he's on with classical music. He's just not going to stop. It was Richard Burton last time. It's classical music this time. Carmen, about a year ago, and loved it. I can see why Nietzsche loved Bizet. Again with the Nietzsche. So you listen to your first opera. So you've never been to an opera? Never seen an opera in person? Anti-Gaia Steve, noise canceling headphones help a ton. I usually wear them, especially if I'm reading on the bus or whatever. I agree. They help a ton. I'm not going to wear them on my home because I have to. Happy to wear them out. Well, I'm not going to wear them outside because I navigate by hearing. I'd be smashed by a car in 2 seconds if I canceled my hearing I'd be smashed by a car in 2 seconds. I don't even go out and about to run errands if my nose is blocked, because I navigate by hearing and sight and smell, not by sight. But I'm not going to wear noise canceling headphones in my own home because I have to. I'll wear them because I want to. Sure, they are a luxury. They feel wonderful. You're just floating with the sound. But I'm not going to wear them because I have to. Nope. Nope. Nobody else, just living in the same way that I am, not royalty or anything, just living in the same way that I am. Nobody else is going to impose that on me. And if they try and they continue to try, then I'm going to stop living my own life and live a life entirely dedicated to making them stop. Simple as that. Answer is a flat, hard no. But anyway, Cedarbridge Officina, thank God, Cedarburg. Who wants any association with that rat trap? I am really enjoying your ongoing Pride and Prejudice readings. Yes, judging from my email, a lot of people are. And one person today, somebody emailed me this evening after today's reading, and said my mother and I have been trying to put our fingers on why we're liking this so much, because we've listened to audiobooks of Pride and Prejudice many times. We both read the book many times. We shouldn't be enjoying this as much as we are. We were trying to put our finger on why. And she said, we came up with the best answer that we've had so far, which is that you're enjoying this so much. And it's so obvious that is just a shot in the arm every day. But anyway, it's been fascinating to hear your comments throughout each chapter. Wonderful audible annotations. That's what they are. They're audible annotations. We're doing an annotated Pride and Prejudice. And it won't be the last thing we do either. I've made my peace with this now. I'm not fighting with my annotations at all. Aaron says, what difference does a conductor make if he didn't compose the piece? What does that mean? What does that mean? So no one can drive well except the designer of the car? What does that mean? Greg Strawn says, what's your sense of the biggest difference between a book critic and a music critic? All right, well, a one-liner joking answer to this question from the 1960s came to mind, but unfortunately, it's not repeatable on a family channel. Oh, boy, though, that's a great memory. I remember when you could write that sort of thing in the Village Voice. Oh, my. The main difference between the two of them is the evanescence of the thing being reviewed if the music critic is reviewing live music. Same thing with a theater critic. With a theater critic or a music critic who is reviewing live performances of classical music or whatever, you never see those anymore. But if they did, they're reviewing something that literally no one is ever going to hear again, and no one heard it the day before either. There'll be slight variations every time for theater and for a live music performance. And sometimes that can be mitigated, of course, if you go and see The Mousetrap or Cats. It's going to be functionally identical to the time before it and the time after, but that's usually not what these people do. They're usually listening to some special performance, some guest conductor, some premiere. And the difference between that and a book or a movie critic is that the thing is made and it's static, so you can go and see it yourself and play the critic against that. If in terms of the job, that's the difference that I always notice. I did a lot of classical music performance reviews, and that was the maddening thing for me as composed to a book critic is that while I was typing out my review, I knew, well, okay, you were off tonight, but you might not be off tomorrow night. I'm just reporting on the one thing that I saw. So I made sure to lard my reviews with lots of history, nice anecdotes, stuff like that. And I also made sure to mention as often as I could, as often as an editor would let me, that I am referring to one performance. That's all. Michael Lombardo says, have the Section 31 Star Trek books ever made it onto your reading pile? Not a have you read question. No, they never have. I'm not interested in Section 31 concept. Never was, even from Deep Space Nine. Golam Udib says, hey, Steve, how are you and more importantly, the Bean doing? We are fine. The Bean is being affectionate in her Teutonic way. We had a bit of a shocking evening. She killed a squirrel, her very first squirrel kill. She came close years ago in the Arboretum when she got a chunk of a squirrel's tail tuft. So there was a big divot, but the thing did get away. But this one didn't get away. This was a clean, violent, incredibly violent kill that I would have changed. I would have stopped it if I'd had any ability to do so. Albert, do you like Don Giovanni at all? And how about the Magic? I don't like either one of them. No, I don't like Mozart much at all. But his operas, no, not at all. Anti-Gaia, that catchphrase Kamala uses, what had been, blah, blah, is like nails on a chalkboard. I hope she retires that ASAP. She should. She should retire. Like I was mentioning earlier, the thing that she mentioned in that rousing speech that she gave, we won't go back. That's a much better catchphrase. That's a really good catchphrase, especially since it's true. No one knows what had been thing means. Nobody knows what that means. But we won't go back is very clear. And it's also true. It has the benefit of being true. The fascist wing in the United States politics wants to go back to a time when black people couldn't drink from the same fountains as white people, when women had no civil rights at all. And America isn't that anymore. America is half female, and America doesn't want to go back. Normal Americans all around the country don't want to go back. And the stupid bigots and sexists who do want to go back don't want to say that. They don't want to come out and say that because they know the social stigma that's involved. Well, that's the way it should be. That's the way I want it to be. I want them to crawl back under the rock that they used to live under before Donald Trump came down his escalator. I want them to go back under those rocks. It's bad enough for me that I know they're out there in such numbers. I want them not to be part of society. So we won't go back. If she makes that something like that a catchphrase, well, then what's the only response? No, we want to go back. And that's deadly. Not that it matters. None of this matters. Gandhi says, please, no negative talk about Philip Roth. Have you come to the wrong Stevestream? I hate him. Hate the man. Hate his behavior in public. Hate his behavior in private. And especially hate his books. Mana says, I'm doing a chronological Dostoevsky read-through along with rereading Frank's biography. Oh, my God. The chronological read-through of Dostoevsky, I totally agree with. I feel like I need to do that myself. I really feel more and more since I was embarrassed in an earlier Stevestream about one of his stories. I really feel like I should go back and reread all of Dostoevsky. But I wouldn't reread the Frank's books with money on the table. I wouldn't do it. And I'm on The Adolescent right now, and it's great. I remember it as being great. I'm surprised that a book like that, like The Idiot, is by far the more popular. Joshua says, I've always found it hard to get into opera. The language barrier makes it feel inaccessible. Well, I said I don't like Mozart's operas. I love opera. I absolutely love Italian bel canto opera. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. I never talk about it on my channel. And I'm never going to see one again because it's $150. But, oh, my God. Gandhi says, Roth's wife died in a car crash. Michael Lombardo says, not difficult to imagine that with Harris as the nominee, the border situation will be the focus. Well, the fascist wing in the United States politics is having a tough time with her, just in general, because their initial response to her, the response that they want to give to her, is a response that will lose them most of the country. Because the response that they want to give to her is just openly expressed racism. And they don't, that they can't stop themselves from doing that, but they have to. They recognize, some part of their lizard brain realizes that they have to. But again, all of this is pointless. None of it matters. This is not about an election. This is about a power grab. But if it were about an election, well, you could take some notice of the fact that Harris has already shown herself as very different from Biden. They're friends. They like each other. But she refused to meet with Netanyahu. That's a major, it's not a policy difference because he's president, but that is effectively a major policy difference. It can't help but think that her approach to the border would be a lot stricter and law and ordery than his. Gola says, I stopped trying to read everything I want. I just stick to rereading my favorites. Oh, no, don't do that. That's reacting too far. You have to stay open to reading new stuff or you get, well, you don't have to, but I would never do that in a million years. You might miss something you really would like. Aslan says, I stumbled upon a corner booktube that loves sword and sorcery, but hate high fantasy and Tolkien. Right, but who are these guys who hate me? These guys who won't read anything new and are all about indie. I want to know about these people. Nietzsche and Wig says, I have tried to read early Keats, and so much is cringeworthy and tawdry, and so blatantly adolescent insensibility. Thanks to this, I am now converted to selected over complete works. What's the meme of all the people slapping their foreheads? Nietzsche and Big. I don't know what I'm going to do about you. I cannot believe the paternity tests show you are my son. When we are so different. I don't know what I'm going to do. Aaron says, Steve, as to the booktubers who reject modernity and supposedly hate you, look up Iron Age books / media, whatever. I'll bet that leads to wherever the commenter was referring. Iron Age is the name of the thing? The name of one of the channels is Iron Age? Nietzsche and Wig's responding, Anti-Gaia. Nietzsche and Wig says, is responding again. Golem Udib says, every time I try a new epic fantasy book, I think this is cool, but I'd rather just reread The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings. All of them do that for you? All of them? Oh. Jenny Park says, I'm curious as to how they can hate modernity but champion self-published works. Well, I don't know about them, so I need to look into this. I wouldn't ordinarily. Once upon a time, for years, doing BookTube, if you told me there's a group of people out there that are pretty vocal in their hatred of me, I would have avoided them because they would have worked me up. Now I don't care. Now it's just amusing. Because I have found that horrible woolly old BookTube term, I've found a community. And then I proceeded to bribe that community with books in the mail to make them like me. Let's see here. Nietzsche and Wig says, have you always voted or have you sat out some elections? Well, a lot of times I've been forced to. A lot of times I haven't been here when there were elections, or I wasn't registered in the state where I was living. When I have, I do, except for now. Jenny Park says, I start my Silmarillion, Hobbit, and Lord of the Rings in August. 1 book per month to savor as long as I can. Good Lord. Dylan Fitzgerald says, my favorite composer is Mahler. Also, I'm a big Dvorak fan. Your favorite composer is Mahler. Okay. Gandhi Angle says, Warden's war chest, not eat chest. Okay. Well, his war chest is dwarfed by Kamala Harris's war chest just today. Dwarfed by it. No one's ever raised more money in as short a time as she has. Leo Percara says, 2 fantasy booktubers who reject modernity are John Del Aros, oh my God, don't get me started, and John A. Douglas. I'm being facetious when I say that they hate you, but they behave like borderline MAGA cult members. John Del Aros is MAGA. He doesn't know that I exist, but he would hate me if he did. Definitely, he would hate me if he did. He doesn't know that this channel exists, but he isn't just borderline. He is MAGA. If Trump told him to kill his family, he would. So don't listen on his channel. Do not listen when he says that he loves his family, that he loves his God, that he loves Jesus. He's not ashamed to say it. If Trump told him to spit on a cross, he would do it instantly. So I don't know about the other guy, but I cannot stand hearing, well, you might differ with some of his opinions, but he's a good, upstanding man. Nonsense. He's a cult member who wants the end of democracy, who would rather have the end of democracy than have a low-T sub-beta male in office. Screw him. If he wants to make a slave out of me so that his alpha male can get in the office. Anyway, Nietzsche and Wig is responding to someone else. Aaron says, supposedly Austin Butler is going to play the Val Kilmer role in the prequel sequel to Heat based on the novel that came out last year. I'm cautiously optimistic. What do you think? I don't know what to think about that. There's not much of a character there. I don't know what to think about that. I don't know what to think about Austin Butler either. I'm glad that he finally, in the biking club or the biker club, I'm fine that he finally allowed himself to smoke on camera. It was getting kind of painful to watch, but he always seems to me to be just a hair away from being real. He always seems to me to be acting. In a way that I don't know quite what the quality is that I'm talking about, but there's a difference between when someone is performing and when they're, I don't know what it is. It could be different acting schools that I'm thinking of, but what's the name of the guy? Oh my God. What's the name of the guy who plays Billy Bean's number cruncher in the baseball movie with Brad Pitt? What's his name? Well, anyway, doesn't matter. There are plenty of actors that don't do what Austin Butler does, that don't have that extra layer involved. In fact, I don't even know. I didn't even go to some unknown guy. Like, for instance, Hugh Jackman doesn't have this quality. He's in the role that he's in, as opposed to playing the role that he's in. I'm not putting that right, but it's left me a little bit lukewarm on Austin Butler, even though he's a phenom. Anti-Gaia says, then again, maybe I'm just still in denial phase of the Kubler-Ross process. Don't want to believe fascism can happen here. No, well, only fascists want to believe that, but it definitely can happen here. It definitely can. This is a fascist majority country. Most of the people that in other words, not most, but more than 50% of the people that you yourself know, are fascists. They might not admit it, but they are. If you question them, they will admit it. Jenny Park says, are you adding to the peer pressure? Oh, you're talking to Gola Muad'Dib. Okay. Gandhi Engels, did you or your graduate work on do your graduate work on the East Coast? Nobody really knows. There's all sorts of confusion on the subject. Did the Victorian jockey known as Steve Donahue even go to graduate school? Albert says, I intend to buy Stefan Zweig, The World of Yesterday. Am I intending well? No, you are not. No, you are not, and you know that. You know that you are not. There are a million things that are not Stefan Zweig that you could be reading that are reputed to be good. They are good. They are excellent. The only reason you're going to him is because people don't talk about him. That's all. You should go to the people that people talk about and read them because people talk about them. They are really good. There are great writers out there. There is no reason at all for you to obscurity hunt with a third-rate writer. There's no reason to do that. Or to tell me about it, for that matter. Gola Muad'Dib says, I think you do well. You seem okay with stand-fast streams. I don't know what that means. Nietzsche and Wig says, Christopher Hitchens would be canceled today. Well, that's the preferable of the two options. The other option is that he would be canceling people. And we don't know for sure which of those it would be. In other words, the number one unanswerable question for Hitchens is, would he be a Trump supporter? Just because people would hate it. I don't know, and I don't want to know. Blue Star Galaxy says, Kelly or Shapiro for Harris VP or someone else. I don't think it'll be Kelly or Shapiro. But I don't know. It doesn't matter, but I don't know. Michael Lombardo says, will reading garbage in August make it more likely to encounter an STD? I'll be reading a lot of garbage in August, a lot of it. But first, I'll be making some term clarifying videos. Definitely. First, I will be making, I think it's no great revelation that quite a few of my co-hosts for Garb August don't like me and don't watch my channel. And I'm not going to be antagonistic towards anybody. But I want to make it clear that garbage does in fact exist. The last 2 years that I've made Garb August videos, I have made a throat clearing video first saying this is not an event, the only event in the world about something that doesn't exist. Garbage does exist. Trash writing does exist. It's not all subjective. I'll have to remind people of that, but I'm going to do a lot of garbage reading. J. Scott Phillips is here regarding Blob Watches getting along. Oh no, I'm late again. I don't know how we're going to do a Blob Watch when one of my arms is commandeered. Until that, JC, I'm petting one of her hands, and she's holding on to me, and I'm not going to change that. So I don't know if we can do a Blob Watch. I've got the machine right here. I've only got one though. The 13-inch iPad is over in the little book room, so we won't have disagreeing Blob Watches. And I am kind of curious. I don't know if I can do this with one hand. Let's see. I should be able to. Can't not do a Blob Watch if Scotty says so. All right, let's give things a chance here to... Oh, I'm getting an earthquake warning for just outside of Dallas. Is that right? I haven't looked at the news. Okay, all right. Well, we have a very active East Coast here. Very active. Look at all that junk. I don't know how much of that is coming up to Boston, but that's a lot. That's a lot of junk there. And it's not going to want to... It's going to take a lot of energy to go out to sea. Oh, I've been freed. It's going to take a lot of energy to go out to sea. So I don't think it will. So I think all of that stuff's just going to come up the eastern seacoast. I haven't seen that in the forecast. As far as I know, next week is predicted to be clear and hot. No relief of rain. But what is this? That's a sign for an earthquake, is it not? Outside of Abilene? Is that in the news? I don't know. I wasn't expecting that. And of course, the West Coast, it looks like, it looks like, what have we got here? Yeah, California is just empty of weather. It's just completely empty of weather. So weird, but that's a lot. There's a mess on the eastern side of the United States. So Monet Doyle mentioned that it's raining in Georgia. It obviously is. I wonder if it's going to come here. Anti-Guy says, I've wanted to cancel Hitchens when it came to him cheering on the Iraq war. Yeah, but did he cheer on the Iraq war, or did he? I mean, he did, yes. But why did he do it? I could easily, I don't know. Yeah, I hated seeing that. Hated it. Jenny Park says, thanks for the moral support. Oh, she's talking to someone else. Gandhi Engel says, do you like tropical vacations? Reading on the beach? Well, all the times that I have spent time in the tropics, I was not vacationing. I was traveling. And I don't read on the beach. No, because reading on the beach means reading in the sunlight. And my pasty fish white Irish skin turns purple and starts to bleed if I'm exposed to sunlight. So I go straight from normal to suppurating 3rd degree burns. So I don't read on the beach either. Nietzsche and Wig says, Hitchens is the one who convinced me there was a vase for the war, a case for the war. Pretty thin case. It's him saying that I know right away when someone starts out by saying, sure, Saddam is a bad guy, but when they say but, I know they don't know what they're talking about. Really? Because I know the politics and the nature and the history of the region as well as you do are better, and I say that. I don't know what I'm talking about. None of your friends who've been State Department analysts for 30 years, they don't know what they're talking about. He's not the only one who lives in the country. If you invade, hundreds of thousands of innocent people who aren't Saddam Hussein are going to die. But anyway, I'm arguing with him. He's long dead. Matt Sheridan says, Hitch has lost so much credibility when he not only supported the Iraq war, but never changed his opinion even when the you-know-what hit the fan. Well, he was never going to change his opinion. Anti-Guy is responding to Nietzsche and Wig. Nietzsche and Wig says, I would watch Hitchens/Galloway debate all day. I could watch it all day. Martin S. says, I'm enjoying your best books ever video. How different would a personal favorites list be? Quite different. Ooh, it would be quite different. In fact, one for the final 21 is giving me conniption fits because I want to include it and I can't, except it's an overwhelming favorite. I don't know how that will work out. That's my list. I suppose I could change it next year if I wanted to. Anti-Guy says, LOL sounds like something Trump would say. I don't know what that's in reference to. Oh, I think you're talking to each other. Sid, do you like anything by Helen DeWitt apart from The Last Samurai? No. Gandhi Angles, my ex got custody of the English Bulldog. It gutted me, but it was the best for him as he has a big yard. Okay. All right. I don't never know what to think about things like that. They're not possessions. I never know what to think about that. Aslan says, your thoughts on the God biographies by Jack Miles? Well, the first two about God and Jesus are great. Just great. And I think the one about God in the Quran is bad. And I had a whole paragraph explaining why it was bad in the review that I wrote. I forget who I wrote that review for, but I had a whole paragraph in the middle of that review explaining my extrapolation, my guess as to why it was bad. And my editor asked if I could take it out. Said, well, we don't want to cause trouble. And I thought, in my head, well, it's a book review. I do want to cause trouble. But I was under her watch. I loved her. So I did it. It's the kind of thing where if you have your own venue, you don't have to worry about that. But the paragraph that got taken out is that the thing that made the Quran book bad is that it was written out of fear. Physical fear for his physical safety. And that says everything you need to know about the difference between the religions, I think, and Hitchens thought. Let's see here. Dead Poet says, did you ever read the Quran? I won't go off on a have you read tirade. I will merely say I have read the Quran in English language translations. I've never read the original, but I've read English language translations. Aaron says, I discovered a self-published niche called Harem Lit. Most of it seems to be crap, but there's one author, Michael Dalton, who's surprisingly good. What is Harem Lit? Is it just literature about harems? Matt Sheridan says, random thought, but very sad about the current news about Noam Chomsky and his stroke. Yeah, well, he's 200 years old. He signed the Declaration of Independence. So it is sad, but it's only sad. It's not a shock. It's not a sense of deprivation or anything like that. Uh, Matt, and you say, when you say recent, you mean last month. Yeah. Anti-Guy says millions of people dying from infrastructure failure and soiled water in that war too. For some reason, Steven Pinker doesn't count those as violent casualties. Oh no, 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 no. Oh no. As far as Pinker is concerned, humans are barely lifting a pinky against each other. No, no, no. No, no, no. He doesn't include them. You're right. He doesn't include any other kind of violence either. No, his statistics are largely based around what Prussia is doing. It's just ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Scott Jones says, thank you for the sympathy. The other things my folks tossed out include 40-ish Star Trek novels from Pocket, all my comic books. I was waiting for the comic book thing to do. That's the thing that parents get vilified for all the time. I don't understand that at all, not in the slightest. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear that. Aaron says, my question about the difference between a conductor makes was genuine. What makes a good orchestra conductor? What makes one better than another? The really good ones will hold the whole of the orchestra in a kind of charismatic grip. It's invisible, but you can sense it. You can sense it in the air. And when they know their people, when they know their sections, they know the strengths and the weaknesses of the sections, the other sections don't. When they know all of that and they have that grip on their whole orchestra, which not all conductors do, but when they have that, they can suddenly make the work subtly different right there in real time from the podium. So that suddenly you are hearing the New World Symphony or whatever for the first time. And you know you'll never hear it that way again. And it's amazing. It's amazing. It does make a difference. Nostalgia is responding to Night Reviews. Steve, do you or at Night Reviews? Steve, do you have an opinion on the books written by John Schwartzfelder, like his book The Time Machine Did It? Never heard of him. J. Scott Phillips is responding to someone else. Jenny Parks is responding to someone else. Moni Doyle says, Steve, people have been talking about the New York Times best books list. Who picked the books? There were no romance lists on the no. There were no romance books on the list. They say that they generated the list from compiling responses from lots and lots of literary luminaries that they contacted with aid from their book review section editors. I think the normal person translation of that is that they made the list and that the luminaries, they added a few of those now and then to sprinkle in names to draw in readers. Because literary luminaries don't read. And they don't read anything. And book review editors barely read anything. So they wouldn't rely on celebrities to do any of it, I don't think. Joshua, where did he go? We have to wrap this Stevestream up, don't we? Yes, we do. Oh my God, I'm going to have to miss comments because there's no way I can get to all of these before we stop. Joshua was next. Where are you? Where are you, me lad? Do you like Schubert, Steve? I love his impromptu and piano sonatas. I do. Manna says, yeah, the conservatives in America seem lost. Even Destiny in his fiery rhetoric can't seem to reach them. Do I have to refer to him as Destiny? Do I have to do that? I will when he's president. I would have if he'd ever become president. But Sid says, Freeda killed that squirrel to prove you wrong on your thoughts about tiny females and how violent they could be. She outweighed the squirrel. Dylan Mathias says, speaking of Steve's hated authors, I recall you once saying quite negative things about Updike. He lived for a long time in Essex County. Did you ever meet him? If so, did he live up to his dude broness? I never met him. No. Nietzsche and Wig says, I read a collection of Dostoevsky's short stories a while back. His short form work is much weaker than the novels generally. Notes from the Underground is fantastic, though. It's virtually an uninterrupted streak from you tonight. Albert says, as this is a contested topic, let us decide this once and for all. Was Tom Bombadil a necessary inclusion? My personal opinion is that he was necessary. Oh, come on now. I love the Tom Bombadil scenes as much as anybody, but he's not necessary. You can remove him from the story. And if you can remove him from the story without a single ripple anywhere, he's not necessary by definition to the story. Gandhi Angle says, I still think George Clooney's op-ed was unseemly. I agree. Aaron says, oh, the YouTube channel Rageaholic is among those Iron Age illiterates. Rageaholic. I'm going to have to remember that. Jonah Hill, right. Moneyball, Jonah Hill. Anti-Guy says, speaking of film performances, I saw some of those in the old Times Square. Is Ethan Hawke's daughter as Flannery O'Connor worth watching? Don't know what you're talking about. Scotty says Jonah Hill. Right. It's Jonah Hill's name I couldn't remember. Aaron says Michael Mann co-authored Heat 2, the book. Adam Driver is supposed to play the De Niro role. That would make sense. Andrew says Nick Cave's latest song is based on the poetry of St. John of the Cross. Is St. John worth a read? No. Sid says, I watched the Philadelphia Story on your recommendation recently and absolutely loved it. It is a fantastic, flawless movie. It really felt like a perfect... It is a flawless movie. There aren't many of those. And it is a flawless movie. I would never have given it a chance if not for your recommendation. Happy to serve. Happy to name a few other flawless movies for you. Colombian Thunder, no reason to obscurity hunt, but then, Steve, I'll just be a normie. No, because if you're not wasting time on Stefan Zweig, you might find a new angle, some new perspective on The Heart of Darkness or The Custom of the Country. Instead of picking an author just so you can stump people at a party. It's just, he's not good. He's not good. And it's your reading time that you're wasting. In about 10 minutes, you're going to be dead. I got in all the Stefan Zweig, though. Gurgle. Connor says the VP candidate should absolutely be Kentucky's own Andy Beshear. If I had to guess, I would say it's going to be him. But it doesn't matter, so I haven't really put much attention into it. Manny says, yeah, a chronological Dostoevsky read-through has been pretty fun, and I love him. But after all this Dostoevsky-ness, I feel I need to take a long shower. Yeah, he's not the most uplifting company. Nietzsche and Wig says, I have felt that way before, especially after reading TBK 4 times. Dylan Matthias says, if one must obscurity hunt, the lesser-known works of noteworthy authors can be a great vein to mine. Yeah, but one mustn't obscurity hunt. There is no must involved. It's a pure decision. And it is purely done to discomfort other people or to buy on the cheap some sort of reading identity instead of doing the hard work, instead of doing the really rewarding work. There is no reason to obscurity hunt. The authors you're going to find in obscurity hunting are almost always going to be rightly forgotten. You're wasting the only reading time you're ever going to get. Dylan Matthias says, Thomas de Quincey wrote a rather fun Gothic novel called Claust. It's not rather fun. Listen to the way you sound. You don't sound that way any other time. Now you sound like a snobby wine critic. It's rather fun. It's got a rather pert little air to it. It's a little presumptuous, but rather fun. Listen to anyway. Blue Galaxy is responding to Connor. Man is responding to Nietzsche and Wit. Andy Guy says, you want to do Blob Watch? Took a Petri dish under a microscope. Oh, right. I don't have the equipment for that. I'm only able to watch blobs on the screen. Nietzsche and Wig says, on my recent Middlemarch reread, I learned to love Mr. Brooks' character a lot more. Whole disillusioned former radical persona is something I can relate to. Jason Lindsay says, howdy, Steve. The novice is back, ready to ask the dumb questions. As a fan of Western writers, especially Larry McMurtry, what should I read to get a better woman's POV of the same era? Maybe Willa Cather? Maybe O Pioneers? Mana says, despite my liking for Insulted and Injured, I would not recommend this sweaty work of extreme melodrama to anyone. Jason Lindsay says, I love watching Gore Vidal, Hitchens, and Stephen Fry debate or lectures. Rena reading says, it's not being thrown around, but I'd like to see Beto O'Rourke as VP. He won't give her Texas, but he would add what Kamala is missing on her campaign. Of course, there's no one in American politics that I love more than Beto O'Rourke. But she'd be crazy to pick him. Something about him, and also there are a couple of others, but he's one of the highest profiles. He's a failing politician. Whatever he wants to do to the people, he doesn't do it to them. That's not Republican angling. That's just him. He's not a successful politician. He is successful, but she'd be crazy to pick him. It doesn't matter, but she'd be crazy to pick him. Anti-Gaia says, Hitchens was a jerk. Let's get real. Gandhi Angle says, who is your go-to most trusted news source? I go to Politico. Politico's very good. Associated Press, of course. I'm a little bit biased in that regard. J. Scott Phillips, I must know more about this harem lit. Yeah, I don't know what it is either. Nietzsche and Wig says, I fear for the future of Europe. As well you should. Gandhi Angle says, my ex has a pickup truck. Our bulldog loved taking drives in it. I just wanted to keep him happy. Very difficult decision. Okay, I'd be much more comforted if I heard that your ex liked to keep him happy. Matt Sheridan says, lots of online fascists seem to like Hitchens. Yeah, well, the whole of the internet, not the whole of the internet, but the whole of that whole side of the internet, response videos, live streams, debates, all that comes from Hitchens. None of that existed before him in anything like what it is now. So they worship him. Sure, they do. He got drunk on stage. Sounded effortlessly profound. They all want to do that. They all want to rule the world. They all want to shape reality with their words. They've all gone down Hitchens rabbit holes, in other words. Leo Percara says, do you like the other books by Hilary Mantel besides the Cromwell trilogy? Nowhere near as much. It might as well be a different writer. Nowhere near as much. J. Scott Phillips, Steve, I would love a concert that you conduct. May I suggest John Philip Sousa? Anti-Guy says, exactly, Steve. Why doesn't Pinker factor in what we've been doing with animals and factory farms for decades? Oh, why doesn't he factor in a lot? Imagine a grown man writing a book saying that mankind has never been nicer than it is now. Gandhi Angle says, thoughts on Stephen King naming one of his books as the best? Can't you guess my thoughts? I'm sure you can. Nietzsche and Wig says, I recommend Frankie Lane. Powerful voice, rawhide, and gunfight at the OK Corral will repay repeated listening. Jeffrey Clark says, a good novel with a strong female lead that takes place in the West is Paint the Wind by Kathy Cash Spellman. I haven't heard her name on BookTube before. Anti-Guy says, will I be duly chastised if I put more puns in the chat? Well, we're wrapping up the chat. I'm not going to get to the end of the comments before I get to the end of the time I have available, but still. Nietzsche and Wig, put down your David Copperfield and read the Pickwick Papers and Dombey and Son instead. J. Scott Phillips, I had to Google harem lit. It seems to be fantasy novels where the main character has two or more sexual love interests. And there's a group on BookTube that champions it? That's kind of weird. Albert says, Stefan Zweig was recommended to me, something which is going to surprise you even more. It wasn't recommended by me, and those are the only recommendations you have to care about. Sid says, yes to more flawless movie recs. I'll be emailing you about that. There are a handful out there. Just, if you haven't seen them, don't let your predispositions, one way or the other, affect you. Instead, just go in. Just like you did with the Philadelphia story. The Vegan Heretic says, Steve, I feel the gods are pushing me to Zola. Any recommendations? I've seen Nana at 3 shops now. Oh my God. Well, Zola's not one of my favorites, but if you've seen the same book at 3 different shops, get it. Because the gods are pushing you, and you don't want to ignore that. Tyler says, I think Buttigieg would be a good choice, but we must have another top 100 movies of the 21st century. Dylan Mathias says, is Beto actually deficient at national level? His idea of making his political identity being the gun control guy in Texas was stupid, but would he really be a liability nationally? He would be. He doesn't work. I wish he did. I think he's great, but he doesn't work on the level that people want to make him. Same thing with Stacey Abrams. They might be really effective, but they are failures as politicians. They don't do what politicians should do. They're not just being artificially hamstrung. They get into elections, they have hundreds of millions of dollars pumped into their campaign, and they fail. I fail to win. Jason Lindsay, besides, Beto wouldn't work as a vice president, I don't think, at all. Kamala Harris would never be able to know what he was going to say. And that, you don't want that in a vice president. Jason Lindsay says, I want to give a shout out to a great orator, well missed, George Carlin. Sorry, folks stuck on Hitchens. Great orator. Oh my. Nietzsche and Wig, I hate how Hitchens would special plead for communist totalitarian whilst rightly attacking the way religions justify totalitarianism. Yeah, a hypocrite is the word, right? Colombian Thunder says, so the Wheel of Time is basically harem lit. Interesting. And also quite a bit of soft porn. Third Space Maker, and some readers are really into reverse harems, one woman and many men at her disposal. Well, okay. Yes, okay. But the growing movement in America is for biblical morality. That's the phrase they use. And if you're talking biblical morality, you are talking about men having many women, men having a harem. That is biblical reality. That is biblical morality. Is men able to do that and women not able to object or refuse? Anti-Guy says, want a film to watch? Go for Monkey Man. I'll have to watch it. I have a screener. I just haven't done it. Jason Lindsay's responding to Nietzsche and Wig. And then Manny says, I tried watching Lion in Winter recently, but I couldn't really get into it. I thought the dialogue was a bit too much. Okay. Well, we'll call it bad timing, and you can try again some other time. Gandhi Angles watched an interview with J.D. Vance from 2017. His physical appearance has been quite gussied up since then. Yeah, he's effectively a different person since he became evil. He's effectively a different person, which is really weird. I don't know of a transformation like that in American politics at all. I know of transformations where tiny hints here and there that you could see in 1960 were suddenly much more pronounced and in the spotlight in 1980, for instance. But I've never seen someone go from a person who is normal and good and upstanding to an evil person, a person who is sneering and mustache twirling and eyeliner wearing and evil. And he even physically looks different. It's the weirdest thing in the world. I'd be interested to know what non-American biographers would make of it in 100 years. Sid says, no, give it another chance. It's such a great movie. I'm assuming you mean Lion in Winter. Anti-Guy says, Trump hates beards too, by the way. Yeah, but he hates them because he can't grow them. He hasn't been able to grow hair anywhere on his body in 30 years. So if he could, he might not hate them. But as it is, he knows that, and it really bothers him. He feels like a eunuch, as well he should, since his sperm is not viable, which means all you need to know about Barron Trump. J. Scott Phillips says, I wonder if Star Trek TOS novels could be considered harem-lit. Nietzsche Wig says, this chat will soon be unburdened by what has been. You're right. She needs to get rid of that. Look at how horrible it sounds. She needs to get rid of that. And the neat thing about Kamala Harris is that if you were to sit her down and turn off the microphones and just make a joke like that, she'd crack up. She'd crack up about it. She might go on to explain at middle manager length why she likes it, but she'd crack up because she'd realize it. I don't know if she'll change it, but anyway, Anti-Guy says it's only a matter of time before Vance gets booted for someone less cringe. Well, it depends on what you mean by booted, I guess. And Anti-Guy says he's a bald little baby like Judge Holden, like the judge. Yeah, like Dad. No, Trump isn't able to generate sperm that's viable, and he isn't able to generate hair on his body. And he hasn't been since a 2-week absence from the public eye that everyone in New York press noticed when it was happening. And they can have only one possible explanation. Mane says, I'm working my way through Keats. Endymion right now. I am really confused, but there are flashes of beauty here and there. I love Endymion. It's probably my favorite thing by him. So I definitely agree with the flashes of beauty here and there. But nevertheless, speaking of flashes of beauty, we do need to wrap up this Stevestream. This has been enormous fun, as always. I love it. It's the closest we're ever going to get, most of us, to talking here in this room. It's the closest we're ever going to get to doing that. It's live. We don't know what we're going to say. We're all free to watch Nietzsche and Wig say one wrong thing after another. It's a wonderful evening, but it has to come to an end. I'm afraid it does. Gandhi says, did you watch Bill Maher's show on Friday and Pete Buttigieg's take on Vance? I did, but I really shouldn't. I really shouldn't do it. Sid says good night. Jason says Beto could not beat Ted Cruz. I like him, but he had to do more to get folks to show up and vote for him. Instead, he inspired the red crowd. Texas could be blue if folks voted. I can't help but agree. I like Beto O'Rourke. He's my favorite American politician for rather obvious reasons, but still, even the non-obvious reasons. But he couldn't beat Ted Cruz. You put it perfectly in one sentence. He couldn't beat the worst, dumbest, most venal, most obviously self-serving, and most universally hated elected politician in American history. and he couldn't beat him with all the money in the world. He supposedly couldn't do it. So, I mean, I realize if you make a vice presidential pick, you're not asking him to beat anybody. But I don't think it will be him. I really don't. Joshua says thank you. Jenny Park says good night all. I'm off to sleep. And Zoom something or other. First time in months catching this flash of beauty. Thank you. Yes, thank you. Elizabeth, the Two Kinds of Books is here. Hello and good night. I referenced you in my Jane Austen read along today. But we'll give her the final word because we do have to go. I have to go. But I'll be back. We'll do another one of these. I don't know when. Could be a while before we do another Stevestream. Events. And maybe family annihilators, but I will try. I will try. We will see what we can manage. This is always so much fun, and I'll have a motive to try. But I'm going to go for now, but I'll be back. And you still have a slew of videos of mine to watch today, and you'll get another slew tomorrow. So you're not exactly deprived. And you can email me, and you can Vox me, but I do need to go. So I'll wrap this up for now. Thank you all for coming, and I'll be back. I'll see you soon.